We're going to do a little exploration today. You're just here to have some fun.
That's my favorite kind of thing to do.
Pep talking? Are you pep talking someone that has like fucking, I don't know, 500,000 subscribers? Like we're trying to tell a pro to do his job. It's like, come on, Howie.
I think it's overall closer to 2 million, but it's okay.
Ooh, there you go.
What is
there
it?
we go. Drops the bomb.
How
That's
many?
a flex. That's
2
a flex.
million?
No, I think it's probably
Closer.
more like 1 million. Actually.
Which,
Just
We'll
a
go
measly
1.5.
mil. Just
I'll
a
cut in the
measly
middle.
mil.
Yeah,
If you add all the platforms
he's
together.
insulted. I'm like $500,000.
Yeah,
Like, no, 5,000?
He
5,000
literally
people?
gave you like the dirtiest look. He's like, I'm going to kill
like-
you.
Smash that bottle over my head.
I worked so hard. I stood in so many hot parking lots for so many hours to get to where I am. It must be acknowledged.
Hey, Ethan, cheers, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate the invitation.
Cheers.
Yeah, make sure you speak closer into the mic. You can just move it back too.
Hey, by the way,
Right,
I'm curious because I see other people and they don't have to speak straight into the mic. What's up with our mics?
Well, no, because they have the whole thing turned up, but it's usually like they have a really much better sound treatment than we do in our episodes, and they have less people. So what happens is if we're all talking close and he's talking far away, I have to turn his gain up, and then which means you hear all that background even more. So it's just much cleaner when you talk closer into the mic.
I figured there was a reason. That's good. Thanks for explaining.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it too. Again, as I'm listening to 800 million hours of podcasts and doing only my second podcast, it's nice to actually be able to actively participate. Now, I'm assuming that these covers, just like a KTV plays, these get changed all the time. So I'm not like I'm not kissing King Kwesi right now.
Although I can maybe arrange that if you
He's
want.
a handsome guy. I follow him on Instagram now. I'm a big fan. He's very funny.
Well, Brian was using that one last week, right? Did we clean it?
Yeah, no, we Febreze them. Like I take them off and I Febreze them and stuff.
Fun fact: Febreze is I don't think does kill any bacteria. It just makes
Fun fact, it says on the bottle 99% germs.
It does? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I'm using the old stuff. I'm used to the stuff from 10 years ago that
Oh, well, it's just for the odor,
it was
right?
just the odor.
No,
Yeah,
this one kills germs.
I thought you were basically saying like, no, it's fine. Germs don't exist if you cover them up.
No, go on. We cut you off. Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So, I was just saying that. So I was in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, for a video that I was invited by a Chinese media to be in, basically to co-host, where we were talking about a Chinese car, which is interesting because it was my first time in the Middle East, and one of the things that struck me, and obviously this is one of the things I'm going to focus on, considering what I do, is the fact that there were a lot of Chinese cars there. Surprisingly, I would say. Based on zero scientific evidence, just eyeballing it, around, 15, 20% of the cars on the road were from Chinese brands.
Just like driving on the street.
Just like driving on the street.
What brands did you see?
So I'm told by people there that there are 15 brands in total, but the ones that I saw the most were Geely, Chery, Chang'an.
Really?
Yes. So there wasn't the ones that you would expect,
Like
right?
Biadi, I would thought.
You would have thought. I told you I shouldn't have drank that whiskey. Now I'm going to have a whiskey burp. So anyways, no, I did not see any BYDs. Now, I think one of the reasons for that is that BYD, when it comes to exporting their vehicles, is mostly focused on pure electric models. Europe, for example, they're mostly focused on pure EV models. And can I tell you what I did not see almost at all? In person, I think I only saw one, was an electric car. It was a pure electric car.
Really?
Yes.
It's not electric there.
No.
So it's all hybrids?
I like how he's like, really, one of the biggest exporters of
Oil,
oil in the world that doesn't have a ton of electric cars. No, they did not. Now, what's another interesting aspect of that is that Saudi Arabia, the sovereign wealth fund there, is also a major investor in Lucid, the American electric car company. So the only electric cars, again, I don't believe I saw personally any, now that I think about it. It was my business partner, my coworker that went with me there. He saw two Lucids. One was a cop car, like a black and white, which looked really cool. And another was actually like an Uber that his wife actually got from the hotel to wherever she was going. And so apart from that, no electric vehicles on the streets.
Wow.
Which is surprising. Well, sorry, let me phrase that. It's not surprising for the reason that I just stated to you, but it is a little surprising considering the way that the Saudi, like the government, the kingdom is presenting itself as being
Pushing
more green and modernization and all
Yeah.
these things. I kind of would have expected them to be putting enough incentives out there to encourage people to buy electric cars like China
But
has.
the ones that you mentioned, like Geely, like what Chery, like They are hybrid or full gas?
The ones that I saw, I think the only one that I saw, there might have been one that was a light hybrid, not a plug-in hybrid. So really quickly, I don't know if how many people on the 4 microphones here are automotive enthusiasts or anything, but basically a light hybrid is like a Prius, an original Prius, and then a plug-in hybrid is one that you can plug it in, right? And it can have a pure electric range where the internal combustion engine up front doesn't drive the wheels. It's just the electric motor or motors. And then, of course, you have an EREV or REEV, which is an extended range electric vehicle, wherein the small displacement engine up front is literally just a generator. It only makes electricity for the motors and to charge the battery. So of those 3 that I just mentioned, the only one that I saw was maybe 1 or 2 like light hybrids.
So the last one is like the real ones, real electric, like Tesla.
No, so
Tesla's a different one.
Teslas have 0 internal combustion engine. So the step past an EREV, right, is an EV, is an electric vehicle.
okay.
So it's more like Lixiang, right?
Correct.
Well, so what's the tip? Like, why do people buy that versus like a pure EV?
Well, the answer is simple, because if you have an extended range electric vehicle, its range is over 1,000 kilometers. And so a pure EV at this point, realistically, the best solution we have for making really impressive ranges on electric vehicles is, well, let's make the battery bigger. And that is an incredible, it's a resource intensive solution, obviously, especially when you consider the fact that you need to recycle these things at some point, hopefully. And it's also very expensive. So it's not a good solution for the consumer. EREVs are a great solution because if you have charging available at your office or at your home, then you can basically, apart from having to go really long distances, like a long road trip, which when you need to do that, you can just fill it with gas. You can go on electric range of, let's say your realistic range is about 150 or 175 kilometers. Most people could use that for a few days at least, just to get to and from work and run errands. And if you have charging available at home or at work, which in China, where they offer you the opportunity to install a slow charger at your home, then you never have to fill it up almost. I mean, I have friends who have Li Auto models who have gone 6 months without having to ever put gas in the car. So I understand there are people that feel as though you end up with a bad electric car and a bad gas car, because it's a bad electric car because there's not a lot of pure electric range, and it's a bad gas car because when you're not using the battery, you're just lugging a heavy battery around. But I understand that point of view, but I also feel like you have to come to the consumer. You have to have a solution. You can't just beat them over the head with the fact that, no, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. You don't need 1,000 kilometers of range. You don't need it. And statistically speaking, that's correct. You do not need to have an electric car with 700 kilometers of realistic range before it becomes a practical solution for your lifestyle. But you have to accept that it's an emotional purchase when you buy a vehicle. And so you need to come to them and say, okay, you're worried about range? Awesome. You can just fill this thing with gas and go as far as you need to go. Just go to the next gas station. But for your daily commuting, you get the experience of driving an electric car, and you get the savings of driving an electric car without having to worry about that long trip. What I will tell you is the BYD, which is the largest producer of electric vehicles, we just did a review on my channel of the Qin L, which received a ton of attention because BYD made a lot of claims about the DMI, or dual mode intelligent PHEV system. It was the 5th generation. And they said this car can go over 2,000 kilometers without charge on one charge and one tank of gas, right? And yes, the faces you're making
Excuse
there,
me?
I know. And we decided, hey, we're going to see if we can do this. Now, what we actually achieved, I'm going to tell you my number, and then I'm going to tell you why I still think it can actually do 2,000.
Ooh.
We filled it with gas when it probably had, depending on the range, about 80 kilometers of range left, and we made it about 1,350 kilometers, 1,350 kilometers. So not 2,000 kilometers, but still, that is an average, I have to think back, 53 miles per gallon or something like that on the highway. Now, the reason I think it is capable of 2,000 kilometers is, one, multiple media have gotten over 2,000 kilometers. One media got 2,403 kilometers. Yes. And I've watched their video. I have no evidence to suggest that they cheated or that they lied or they filled the tank secretly or anything. I think that their conditions, and just for more context, one media also got 2,200, one got 1,800, 1,700.
So really, I think it seems like it depends on how you drive, the road conditions, the weather, the temperature. They all come in, right, as factors.
How much AC you're blasting in the car, maybe. I don't know.
How many people you're carrying?
Yeah, the weight.
150%. And so I would say that in our case, we had a lot of factors that were going to inhibit that.
You're like driving like a Ferrari. That's why you only did 1/3.
Extremely aggressive. I did 170 the entire time.
He had the music all the way up.
I did.
Yeah, like 30 people packed like a clown car.
People in the trunk.
Yeah, he was dragging a trailer.
I was also pulling a second Chinel behind us. So we had rain, we had elevation changes, we had obviously it was pretty darn hot. We had 3 people in the car. We also kept the air conditioning on auto, and then we also had set it like 22 degrees because it was again hot outside. And listen, I'm willing to do a lot for my subscribers to give them the best possible video, but I am not going to sweat my ass off for 3 days of driving just so that I can maybe get closer to 2,000 kilometers. It's also not realistic, I think, for a person who actually uses it. Another thing I wasn't going to do, which I mentioned in the video, was I was not going to run it out to the very, very end and have it die on the side of the road, which, for the record, is what all those other media did. These are local media I'm talking about. We're the only kind of, quote, foreign media, or really what I should say is media posting in English on a foreign platform that have done this review, or this type. But they all went until it was dead stop, couldn't go any farther. And I was like, okay, it's like 35 degrees. It's like 110% humidity. This highway's it's like
down here.
It's borderline a swamp outside, so the mosquitoes are everywhere. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Another reason, just for practical reasons, is we didn't want to make it. We wanted to make a loop that ended in Shanghai, because in case we actually did get 2,000 kilometers, I didn't want to make it like, I don't want to go 2,000 kilometers south and then have to go all the way back.
This is like when you want to run like 10K or something, right? Halfway through, you got to start running back.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're going to run fucking 20K.
Yes. And so it was, we chose not to run it flat, but I remember when we got to the point, we had a very big decision to make because we were about 20 kilometers from the next gas station. It was no longer displaying a range. It just said, fill the tank. And it was out of electric range. It had been out of electric range for a long time. And so I'm looking at my partner like, the next filling station after this one, that's 20 kilometers away, is 100 kilometers away. And I'm like, theoretically, yes, do we roll the dice? Like, theoretically, we could eke it out. And I kind of wanted to, because one of the interesting things about that video is that I found through, as I got closer and closer to the end of the tank, that I wanted to try and get as far as possible.
You just want to push it.
I was gamifying it. I was automatically gamifying it.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And so I ended up...
Because you made it that fucking far. So you wanted to know.
I'm like, can I get to 1,500? Like, why not try? But I was like, I wanted to make this realistic. I'm not going to start realistically. Probably if you were getting that close to the end of the range, you'd also slow down. But oh well. I wanted to make it realistic to show like how far you could actually go if you drove like a normal human being, and didn't
normal
just
driving conditions, normal situations.
Precisely. Yeah.
Well, I want to back it up a little bit, okay? Just in terms of this whole EV conversation, because I'm not a car guy. I find all this stuff really fascinating. I find that especially the topic of EVs in China is a really hot and fascinating topic right now. But I was never brought up as a car guy. Like, I never got into cars for whatever reason. So when I hear all this stuff, my mind is always gravitates towards the larger topic, I guess, of why EVs and what is it solving for. What's your school of thought on that in terms of the bigger picture of why EVs are important to the world, if they are, in your opinion? And and what solutions do they bring?
So it's an interesting question. I mean, I think that there are certain media it would be more accurate to, rather than calling them car reviewers, you just call them EV advocates. They're just people that either for genuine reasons believe that electric vehicles are the solution that the world needs and that their purpose is to make sure people know that, or for reasons of it's a hot topic and you can make money if you do this kind of content. I am not what I would call someone who's an evangelist of electric vehicles. But I do, to your point, think there are genuine practical problems that they solve. So speaking environmentally, it's obviously been a really debated topic for years. You know, there was the whole thing, the meme basically years ago of like, well, actually, if you factor in the materials used in the battery pack, a Prius isn't as environmentally friendly as a Hummer H2, and it's like
That's what I hear. You know,
patently false.
Okay.
There are, if you, I mean, it's become so common for people to believe that, and also I think politically useful. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at a car leaving a factory, right, and you say, okay, this is a pure ICE internal combustion engine vehicle, and this is an EV. When they leave the factory, yeah, the environmental
equal grounds, right?
They're not though.
Okay.
That's so this is have to think in longer terms. The EV did take is more resource intensive because the amount of chemistry of the battery and stuff and the materials in the battery and the chemicals, I should say, than the internal combustion engine vehicle. But the longer you drive them, before not too long, you know, we're not talking about 15 years. We're talking about 2 and 3 and 4 years. The EV then blows past the gas car, and that also obviously includes cost of ownership. Now that's much more true in China than it is abroad because the price of Chinese electric vehicles is so outrageously low due to both the incentives created by the Chinese government and then also the insane level of competition.
Yeah.
Holy moly. I mean, this is a separate topic we can get to. I want to finish answering your question here, but there's a reason all the Chinese companies want to leave China and go to abroad. It's because for them, that's so much greener pastures. Like in Chinese, they say Honghai and Lanhai, right? The
Red
Red
Seas,
Ocean, Red Ocean, and Blue Ocean.
yes. I speak Chinese much more better than I can translate into English. So this is very much a place where the competition is way too high. But yeah, so when it comes to electric vehicles, like I said, the practical solutions are, I do think environmentally overall, they are going to be better. I do think they're going to be the future, especially as we transition away from battery pack chemistries that use more intensely things like lithium and things like phosphorus, whatever. We move away from those and we move into ones that have both less harmful materials in terms environmentally, but also in terms of the impact that they have in collecting them, right? Because we have to acknowledge, as is so often the case when it comes to these things, what we do is we improve the air in our city by destroying the environment of some other place where they have to actually mine the materials to make the battery packs.
Yeah.
Like, I really try to acknowledge all the aspects of the process of making these vehicles because I think it's disingenuous to just say it's better.
And that's it.
Yeah, and then that's it. And what you mean is it's better for me here now.
Yeah, you got to look at the Earth level.
Yes, the Earth level. Take a global picture. And so, like, as we move away from these more damaging chemistries, more mining intensive chemistries and stuff, and move more to like the sodium ion batteries, which there's much talk about BYD coming out with and stuff, which are way cheaper to make and use much more common materials, then I think you're going to see that curvature, that comparison of the cars leaving the factory getting closer and closer and closer, right? To the point where the EV is almost on par, hopefully, with a internal combustion engine vehicle, and maybe it takes just 6 months for you to pass it in terms of environmental damage.
So when you're saying on par, it's like when it exits the factory, the amount of I guess harm environmentally that it took to build each car is about the same.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully.
And so what you're saying right now is in its current state, an EV, when it leaves the factory, the EV took a lot more to build, I guess, maybe resources. But once you get it on the road over, just a handful of years, it kind of pays for itself and then some in terms of its savings towards the environment, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's the overall picture right now, and I will hasten to say that I'm an expert at standing in hot parking lots and talking about what's good and bad about a car. I'm not an industry level expert, and I hope that there are those in your audience who will very politely and patiently explain if there's something that I've gotten wrong here. But that's my understanding as it stands.
Makes sense.
And so, yeah, it's like closing that time gap of, as opposed to 6 months after it leaves the factory, the EV is, and more environmentally friendly. Because when you think about the impact of a vehicle, with the Tesla Model S owner in California that has a license plate that says F big oil or whatever doesn't understand is that, their electricity is coming from, natural gas or something. There is still an environmental impact. And when you look at the overall environmental impact when purchasing or when creating a vehicle and manufacturing a vehicle, like it's important to consider that. And that's why I say when they leave the factory, the EV is less environmentally friendly.
And you got to
quote
look
unquote.
at that like for anything, because like that's not the only industry where people are trying to move in that direction. It's like, are you truly carbon neutral? Like the people that design the cars work in an office. Is that office carbon neutral? Right? The whole supply chain, the materials. Like you can, again, is it at the earth level? Is it actually helping the earth? Is it cooling the earth down, or is it heating it up? And I think, but those evangelists are needed, because before anything becomes mainstream and before this technology becomes mature, if there's not investment and subsidies and development and competition, we'll never actually get there. So in the beginning, you kind of have to, you gotta like kind of nurture it a little bit.
Yeah, and it's also kind of annoying, I think, when a lot of these big changes, hopefully for the better, happen. You have a lot of naysayers who are trying to like nitpick and punch holes in the thing without understanding like things get more efficient over time, right? And it's a process. And to expect, because like this is still like relatively early days in terms of, I think, the big picture we're talking about. And to be like, oh, on day one, you guys have to be already like freaking killing it, and everything has to make 100% sense, and then everything is like has to be on the like. I mean, then you're setting an impossible standard for any industry to achieve on day one. Meanwhile, everything is a process, and these things improve over time, and you have to be, like what Eric was saying, you have to nurture it along the way. I think instead of trying to, I mean, there's a value in terms of people punching holes in things and testing your arguments and questioning and challenging. I think that's useful, but I think when that becomes your sole agenda is just to try to tear something down for whatever motives you have, I mean, then that's really counterproductive.
Yeah, I mean, as a person whose job it is to say what's good and bad about cars, I'm all about punching holes in things. But I do think that you need early adopters, right? And you also need to acknowledge the fact that, okay, so electric car technology isn't necessarily as matured as internal combustion engine technology. Huge surprise. Yeah. They've been making internal combustion engine vehicles since the 1880s, and electric cars, something that a lot of people don't know or are only vaguely aware of, is the fact that early on in the automobile industry, if I can speak English correctly, electric cars were actually considered a very viable alternative. And it wasn't until they really improved internal combustion engines to the point where ownership was so much more convenient than an electric car, because the battery technology back then was, as you can imagine, in the early 20th century, batteries were not very good. At that point, the ownership experience for an ICE vehicle was so much more convenient that there's no chance for electric vehicles to continue.
When was this?
This was in the early 20th century, so the early 1900s.
Really?
Yeah.
Back then, they were already thinking about this stuff.
They were already battery electric vehicles available. Like the Baker Electric was a very famous early vehicle, and the range was, I'm going to make something up here. I mean, something like 20 to 30 miles or something. And you say that's both impressive considering it was over 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And also not especially practical.
Were they like hand crank batteries or something?
I don't know. I don't even know. It was probably a lead acid battery if I had to guess. I don't know off the top of my head. But what's interesting is when the mainstream market started to diminish because ICE vehicles became more convenient, and you could just go to the pharmacy at the time and fill up your gas tank, they changed their marketing tactics to actually go after female buyers, because at that point, this is before electric start, right? Before you could hit a button or turn a key and have the car start. You had to crank it. Like you crank it, and there's the chance that it like backfires and breaks your arm or whatever. And then it stinks. And all these things. Again, there was not a lot of exhaust particulate filtering going on in the early 20th century. So they use that as a way to say to female buyers, hey, you guys do not have to worry about these big, noisy, smelly engines or having to get out and crank this car to start it. You can just turn the key or even just get in and go. And that again, proved to be an effective marketing tool for maybe a decade and a half before then all of a sudden they had electric start in vehicles and the advantages became very obvious. So, and it's taken us about 100 years to come back around to it.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think about that. And now look at the way EVs have taken over the world, but not as much as we think, right? Because in China, we live in this bubble where on the road, it's like 70% EV vehicles. Meanwhile, you look at some of the statistics in the States and stuff like that, and you see it kind of going down a little
All
bit.
I see is like, I live, I grew up in Texas, right? It's all SUVs, right?
All
it's
pickup trucks.
Pickup trucks, like SUVs.
So have you been noticing anything like that? Or do you, when I don't know if you're doing research or speaking with your fans or anything like that, what do you see the EV industry in terms of its placement in the world?
So, I mean, it's market to market, right? I think EV adoption, if you look at a place like the United States, technically the EV market, I believe, is still growing, but it's just not growing anywhere near as fast as they thought it would. And there's good reasons for that. When someone tells me in the comment section of a video that I make about a Chinese car in China, well, this car doesn't suit my lifestyle, I don't go, you're a liar or you're an idiot. I go, I believe you. In most cases in the US, it's a much more believable thing to say because the electric vehicle charging infrastructure is, the statistic I like to give is that there are more electric vehicle chargers in, I think, one district, or I'll be generous, in just the city of Shenzhen in China than there are in the entire United States.
That's crazy.
Right? And so it's not hard to understand why somebody would look at that situation and make a very practical decision that, no, I'm not ready to adopt an electric vehicle. Not to mention the fact that in the United States, electric vehicle prices are absolutely ridiculous. The value for money just isn't there yet. When you've got to spend $50,000+ to get the Chevy, the new Blazer electric vehicle, which had a hellaciously bad launch because its software rather, was incredibly buggy and stranded multiple journalists. And I have friends
Or were they using Microsoft or what was
it was Windows 2. I never even heard of Windows 2. But
blue screen on their
they blue
EV?
screened, exactly. They got blue screened at multiple chargers.
That
but,
recently happened at all the airports. Did you hear that?
Yeah, right. This
With
whole
CrowdStrike?
Yeah, CrowdStrike, right?
Yeah.
oh, I had not heard about this.
Yeah.
You were stuck in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I was stuck in, yes.
There's memes going around like call it like they want that day to be called like the National Blue Screen Day so people don't have to work.
Make it a national holiday. Yeah. So you got the problem of price, right? Which is where electric vehicles in the United States are still way too expensive. You also have the problem of, frankly, they're just not that great. The products that are available on the U.S. market compared to the products that are available in China, it's laughable. I mean, the value for money, the technology, the convenience, and all these things. These brands, these legacy automakers, we call them, right? Your General Motors, your Volkswagens, your Toyotas, your Germans. They are genuinely behind, and they know they're behind. And I know they know they're behind because I speak to people at these manufacturers, and the Germans are the least likely to acknowledge this fact in real life, which is why they're maybe most behind. But they know that they're struggling to catch up to where the Chinese automakers are in terms of these PHEV and EV models, and it's both in terms of all aspects of the experience, both what they call the three aspects of a battery electric vehicle, right? The battery, the motors, and the battery management system, the BMS, which is incredibly important, which is why Tesla's always been quite good at BMS, which is one of their major advantages.
What battery management system?
Battery management system. So it's essentially the software that they use to manage the juice in that battery to make sure that's used as efficiently as possible. So if your BMS is bad, it doesn't matter if you have a big ass battery pack. If you don't use it appropriately, use it judiciously, then you will barely get as far as the person that has a smaller battery pack with the better software.
Yeah, you get a lot of wasted power out of that. Right?
Absolutely. And so they also have, in terms of the interiors and stuff, the smart technology, as the Zhineng, as they call it in China, is so much better.
So much better.
The voice command systems. Oh my God. One of my favorite pastimes is borrowing a car from a foreign brand. Like I had an Audi Q3L. It's like a Q3L e-tron. It was one of their
The newer one.
one of the newer, their electric model, and the voice command system was hilariously bad. And I was trying to do it in Chinese. And just for the record, I had my Chinese coworker, who obviously speaks Chinese better than I do, and do the same commands, and it was just the simplest things it would not do. Or a Kia that we borrowed. We had an EV6 GT, which is a phenomenally driving car. Great car to drive. But it has like manually adjusted seats for over 400,000 RMB. Yeah, you can get an ET7, which has got cooled, heated, and massaging front and second row seats.
Was that the Neo thingy?
Yes.
Like their high end? Like
Correct. Their highest end sedan. So when it comes to all these different aspects, these foreign manufacturers are in trouble. So this is why I think these infrastructure issues, product issues, that the EV adoption in places like the United States has not been as fast as it probably as it could be, or they expected it to be. And then, of course, obviously, you have the politics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of your videos, because like I mentioned to you before, I've been watching your videos for a while now, and sometimes I'll scroll through the comments and you see like the mixed type of comments. You see a lot of people be like, "Oh God, I wish it was here in America," or "I wish it was here in Europe." Well, you guys are so lucky, you have so much choice, and this is amazing. But then you got the other people that's just like, it's Chinese brand, it sucks, right? And it's like, quit bullshitting, and that kind of talk, right? Which I can kind of get. And we've mentioned this previously. I forgot which episode. We were talking about how if you look back in the 80s, the way America demonized Japanese manufacturers and its cars, and then Koreans afterwards, right? It was always like because of competition and, and many other factors. Chinese is just going through its time right now as well. It seems like globally, right? But I'm pretty sure that there are some markets that, that Chinese cars have already entered for a bit that has a lot of good feedback, especially with BYD being a pretty, I would say, mature brand in some ways. What other manufacturers do you think are kind of giving a good name for Chinese EV?
I mentioned previously, like when I was in Riyadh for the last week, and I spoke with some people there. I didn't do a comprehensive study, but I did speak with multiple people there from different income levels and stuff about Chinese cars, and I got some interesting feedback. Like, I think overall, people like them quite a bit for the reasons that you would expect, i.e., very high value.
Value, right?
So you can get a car that costs significantly less than, say, a BMW, but actually has more features than the BMW, like your heated, cooled, and massaging seats, and a much nicer to look at and more easy to use UI and UX experience for the center screen and all these things, a heads-up display, I think that there are definitely markets like that where Chinese vehicles are being accepted much more quickly. South America, as I mentioned, there's there's growing popularity for Chinese brands like BYD. That is one where they've been very successful so far, and it includes their pure electric models as well. Success is a relative term. I want to be clear. Right now, about a year ago, it seemed as though every single Chinese manufacturer as a collective unit went, okay, now's when we send out our press release that we're going to the Middle East. And when you see something like that, you start to think, I think that came from above. I do think that the Chinese government basically was like, okay, guys, it's time for us to get out of the country. I'm not saying that the Chinese manufacturers were reticent to do that. They all want to do that for the competitiveness of this market that I mentioned before. But it does feel like it's kind of been like, we're all going out. Oh, excuse me as I bump into the mic. So we're all going out right now. And I think whether it's the Middle East or whether it's Southeast Asia, the current state of Chinese car makers in those places is nowhere near as impressive as they would have you believe in the press releases, and especially the news you're getting within China, right? It's basically, if you'd listen to that, then you would say, like, well, 3 months from now, BYD is going to be the only car sold in Thailand. And that's not the case.
But they're just launching in Thailand, like, at least in the bigger push earlier this year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is very much, and this is fine. This is the steps to entering a market. There has to be a years-long period of adoption that comes from the consumer, because the anecdote that I got from the guy that I spoke with in Saudi Arabia, this one guy was like, my family bought a Toyota in 2000. We're still using that Toyota. It's never really had any problems. He's like, that's what the Chinese have to do. The Chinese have to prove themselves. And you're talking about, again, a timeline of a decade at least. So it's perfectly understandable that Chinese manufacturers have not overnight conquered every single market. Do I think that they will, in the long term, conquer pretty much every market? Absolutely, I do.
Yeah, I think so too.
Absolutely. I think that I think I was listening to a thing. I will take this moment to recommend a podcast that I listen to for those who want to stay up to date on news in the Chinese car industry and what's happening. China EVs and More, which is hosted by a guy named Tu Li and then Lei Sing. They're the co-hosts. And it's focused on the Chinese car industry and industry level news, whereas my content is car reviews, individual car reviews. So they were talking about the fact that there's a study out recently that I think the European market is going to be like 30% Chinese cars by 2030.
Well, European market is still. I mean, there's only a few brands that's really pushing, right? Like Zeekr is going out there.
Yep.
And Neo.
Zeekr. Mm-hmm.
Right? Zeekr, Neo, but they're not really doing big stuff over there, right?
No, and Europe is another example of the one where it looks really, really good on a press release to say, we're in Europe. What they might mean is we have one dealership we have two dealerships in Norway and then one in Germany and probably not even one in the UK. And again, no shade being thrown at the Chinese manufacturers because it's called marketing, right? And it sounds really good to domestic audiences to say, like, we're selling abroad. We're now an international brand. And it's true, but only to a very limited extent.
Yeah, because they can now use that word, right? We're an international brand.
Well, how would you rate
Makes
their
sense.
marketing? Like, it sounds like the quality of the car has already reached a pretty high level, right? What would you rate their ability to market and sell, in other countries?
I think more and more of them are going to they're getting more and more local teams, right? A team that's based in Germany or based in France or based in Brazil, as opposed to having it be completely dictated by the Chinese office, which is a recipe for absolute disaster. But there's definitely some room for improvement. There's going to be growing pains. One of the things that Chinese manufacturers seem to do a terrible job of is naming cars. And it's not what you think. I think like the names for Chinese models, I'll pick on a couple of brands here. BYD, and there's a brand called Aura, which is owned by Great Wall Motor. BYD, their model names, they're just very confusing, right? The lines that they have,
Like Dolphin.
Dolphin, I love Dolphin, Seagull, Sea Lion.
It's like a Shilia, which is good.
Exactly. And it does make sense even in English, but for then they start throwing in like now it's called like the Sea Lion 05 and Sea Lion 07. Oh, it's not Sea Lion. Seal. Sorry, the Seal is sedan. They've got one that's the Seal 05 and the Seal 05 PHEV. It's just very confusing. And when they go abroad, in certain cases, they've been essentially convinced by their local manufacturers, their local representatives, right? The dealership network that's contracted with them to sell their cars in that country, say Australia, for example, like we can't call it the BYD UN Plus. We've got to call it the Atto 3 or whatever. And then you end up with a very confusing...
But who says you can't?
The Australian, as I understand it, right? As I understand it, allegedly, the Australian distributor for BYD basically was like, yeah, you can't sell it as a UN Plus, right? This is their electric compact SUV, which is our company car, actually. It sounds too Chinese or whatever logic they used. And so they convinced them to change it to the Atto 3, ATTO, which apparently means like, it's like how Google means a really huge number.
Okay, so, but like, this is interesting, right? When I think about, I don't know, Toyota, let's just use Toyota as an example. And I know less about cars than anyone in this room. I've never even bought a car before. I've driven cars and hand-me-downs from my family. I've never purchased a car in my whole life, right? And I don't drive one out here in China. When I think about, though, Toyota, right? I mean, it's a very interesting sort of thing because I know they're a Japanese company with incredible history and legacy. But when I see their commercials and everything, it just feels like, oh, there's an entire, like in the US, there's like a whole US operation where it's basically like a US company. And in my mind, it's like this bifurcated thing where there's a Japanese Toyota and they do their thing and it's the global company. And then Toyota in America, I mean, their shit's just like any other American brand almost in terms of how they market it, right? So I imagine it's mostly Americans and stuff and it's pretty independent. Then when you look at like, their brands, I don't even know if they have the same names right? Like the Toyota cars in Japan, are they called even the same thing? The Nissans, are they called the same thing, or that it's like a totally different name in different countries? So like that, there's a whole game that you have to play, and I wonder how long. And that's kind of the root of my question for the Chinese manufacturers is like, how long will it take them to kind of basically have completely localized operations in those countries?
So first of all, you're right. There is Toyota of America, there's Subaru of America, there's Mercedes of America, right? And they do have a certain level of independence, which varies from brand to brand. I also want to clarify something I was saying before, which is that it's not possible to have the same vehicle model name for every single market. That's unrealistic for various cultural reasons and stuff. I just think that there's maybe perhaps a better example was that I started to say was Aura, right? So they're the brand from Chongqing, from Great Wall Motor. They used to have cars like the Good Cat, the Black Cat, the White Cat, right? Which is a play on the I think it's Mao Zedong who said, you know, I don't
care if it's a white cat or black cat as long as it catches mice.
rats.
It catches mice. Thank you. Yeah,
rats.
if it catches a mouse, it's a good cat or something like that. And so that's why they had the black cat, the white cat, and the good cat.
Okay.
And these are fun names. They're straight up just fun names. And then they export them, and they for a bit called them that, and then they changed it to like the GWM Aura 03.
What?
And I about
For which market are we talking about?
I think that was specifically for the UK, or Europe in general. It just so happens that as I understand it, Great Wall Motor fired like a ton of their European marketing team, but whether that was because of performance or because they weren't selling as many cars as they wanted to, I don't know. But it will take many years for the Chinese manufacturers to reach the level that you're talking about there with having a relatively independent set of representatives in every country. So one of the major things about that is Toyota has multiple manufacturing facilities or factories in the U.S., right, and other places. And if you are just the person who's running the U.S. office, and you're probably not going to have as much sway back in Shenzhen where BYD is. If you're just the person who's like, well, you're the representative. Your job is just to translate the advertisements, right? But if you're the person who's supposed to be overseeing major manufacturing facilities within that place, like domestically, then you can have a much larger influence.
Yeah, more say because you're a general manager of a bigger operation.
Correct.
But I was just thinking like they should just get like some, like TikTok does a fucking awesome job, right? In terms of marketing and stuff like that. You should just find whatever Chinese brands that like Shine. You guys were talking about some other show, right? With
Timu.
Ben. Yeah, it's like just hire all those motherfuckers that like are good at selling Chinese shit and hawking it in other countries, and then like fire all your people, right? Just hire the TikTok team.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously you're selling a different kind of product, and getting someone to download and use an app is a little different than getting them to buy a $35,000 car. But but I do agree with you in principle there that there are examples that they can look to say, how can we do it?
And like, how can we run? And I was being facetious about hiring their people, but just like, well, how does TikTok actually run their business so it's relevant? Right. Mm-hmm. And then what kind of structure does that look like? How could you adapt it to, the car industry, et cetera, et cetera. And like, I mean, facetiously, it's like, yeah, you just, buy all the ads on TikTok and just get them to show Chinese EVs all the time. And maybe that would work. I don't know.
And there's more and more of that. I mean, BYD was a major, obviously, as you probably, anybody here watch, I think they call it football.
Soccer,
yeah.
I don't know what football is.
The Euro Cup or whatever. Just
we don't really watch.
No. I watched none of it. I do not care. Yeah. I don't watch sports.
We're so American here, Jesus.
Yeah, I mean,
is
I don't
it
really
called
watch...
the Euro Cup? I don't even know what it means. No, seriously, is it called the Euro Cup?
Isn't it?
There's a lot of different cups, right? Though I think one of them is called the Euro Cup.
Yeah.
There's gotta be a Euro Cup
That's
somewhere.
The one that Spain just won?
Yeah, against England, which is the only information
Don't
I know about.
I didn't even know that.
See, there's a little Trump in all of us. We love being ignorant.
Let's not hang on this topic. We're not experts on that.
Yes, I can hear that there's people somewhere just raging listening to this. So we will not.
So all our listeners are soccer fans.
I want to pull it back a little bit because I don't want to get too focused on marketing because, like you said, that's not your real focus.
Technically, my undergraduate was public relations and marketing.
Oh, was it really?
Yes.
Okay.
So, right in your face, Howard.
But also,
how dare you?
I don't want to talk about it either because I'm not an expert. So.
Exactly. So, but I am curious because come on, we're away from your show right now. You're on our podcast. You've tested and driven so many EVs here.
How many EVs have you
Let's
tested?
talk a little shit. Let's talk
Yeah,
a
let's
little
talk a
shit.
little shit here.
We can do it.
Let's talk a little
But
shit
how
here.
many? Hold on. How many EVs have you tested up until this point?
I mean, if you just like all the videos in my channel, I think we have over 200 videos or something, close to
Yeah,
200
yeah,
videos.
shit.
That's nice.
And so that doesn't. I've driven more cars than that because
Yeah.
obviously it doesn't include like when a new car comes out. If I am not going to be able to get it for a video, I'll still go to the dealership and at least try to
You
do
find
a
your
test
way
drive.
to
I
test
saw
it out.
so the ones I saw recently because I started watching after Howie mentioned you're coming on. What was that? What's that brand where they had like the super fucking high end shit,
Yang Wang.
like the Rolls Royce of China? But
Oh,
it's like
sorry.
Is
You're
it
talking about
Hongsama?
Hongqi.
Hongqi, yeah.
Hongqi.
And yeah, those were some good reviews. Like you were pretty. I mean, you gave praise where it was deserved, and then you're like, and you kind of criticize when.
When it's bad. Yeah.
That's like the standard for a good reviewer.
No, but what
That's like the bare minimum for a good
What I was
reviewer.
surprised at is like in these multi-million vehicles, like he was like it was more about the actual
I
review. Like
get it,
he was actually impressed with some of the stuff, and then there were some elements that weren't like at the Rolls level.
yeah.
Absolutely not. I think something you mentioned before, right? And I feel like this is something that comes up in every one of your podcasts where you talk to somebody who is like on social media and posting about China and stuff. There's always going to be people in the comments section that are going to. The second comment of the video is always somebody being like, how much is the Communist
Shill.
Party? Yeah, how much are they paying this guy?
Yeah.
Nothing.
How much is the CCP? How much are you getting from the CCP? Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
nothing.
Not a dime,
100%.
not so far. And so the way I combat that, you cannot combat that. You can't. I mean, apart from, I combat that in my mind by knowing that I review cars as objectively as possible. Everything is subjective essentially, but I mean to say that I try to at least acknowledge what's good and what's bad. So I'm not afraid in review, right? To say like this user interface is amazing and the performance of this car for this price is great, but holy hell, this interior material quality is shit. Like it's as a car reviewer, and another one of my friends is a guy named Will Sundin who runs a channel called China Driven. He and I talk all the time about the fact that it's interesting as car reviewers, we're drawn to the extremes, right? We want to see the newest, hottest, coolest thing, and there's reasons for that. There's objective reasons, like I know that a video that is the newest, hottest, coolest thing is going to get more reviews, but it's also easier to write a script because most of my videos are scripted about a car that has something really interesting going on. I do find myself, and I have acknowledged before in my videos that I find it hard sometimes when I'm reviewing the 5th new Chinese electric sedan in a month to find something new to say about it. Because not every car, a lot of these cars are very mainstream models where the design is supposed to be as, let's say, as Zhongyong, right? Like as mainstream and average and non-offensive as possible. Like, what the hell do you do with that? What do I?
When something's like vanilla and vanilla and vanilla all over again.
Yeah, exactly. It's like this delicious triple vanilla ice cream. It tastes like vanilla.
Yeah, this vanilla is so much better than the last vanilla, which was
Right. The consistency.
Yeah, but that's what I kind of want to ask you about because you've been reviewing so many cars, and one trend that I find, at least, I'm no car expert either, but just from seeing on the road and in showrooms, it seems like, without naming names, but not the biggest players, but you have so many EVs that are just coming out of the woodworks. At least from my perspective, because I don't know who they are, but they kind of have similar design sense in terms of the exterior, that bar in the back.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And then you go into interior. Now it's starting to be like the full LED across both the driver and the passenger side.
Oh, you mean that color thing, like that purple little line or something
Well,
like that?
it's just you're having these design sensibilities that are kind of becoming prevalent in every new model.
To a certain extent, that happens in every market, right? There's a kind of a singularity at some point, and I do think that Chinese designs, like I do think one of the valuable things about my channel that people can learn is that not every Chinese design is a copycat of a foreign brand, right?
Oh yeah.
Obviously, that's not the case. Now, does it feel like Chinese designs are all kind of converging? Yes, and I've acknowledged that in multiple videos where I'm like, okay, another car with a LED light bar front end with lower headlight units, do you know what I mean? Which the Xpeng P7 was the original kind of design for that.
yeah.
And then one of the most influential designs in the Chinese car industry at this point, because now everybody does it. It's like the Li Auto look. It's not a copycat, but it's the same same elements used in slightly different ways. And that's why, like, if you are someone who just pops their head into, this topic, like a lot of my audience are, then they might be like, wow, these cars all look all really the same, because they don't have the same level of understanding or interest as I have, and so I can tell them apart, and I can say, well, actually, this is
here's
this
like
is
a
But even
nuance
you
to
have
it.
a hard time distinguishing, like,
I know I can tell them what they all are, what brand they are, but again, I have to acknowledge that the fact that
But I think that's just a characteristic of tech, right? Like, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I mean, after the iPhone came out, they all kind of minimized and had that little button, and it all started kind of looking the same, right? So it happened with smartphones. It happens with cameras, camera technology, all these cameras, like different features. You start seeing them across different brands all of a sudden, and it looks like they're all copying each other.
But
We see those
cars
a
are
lot.
known for their design, right? So that's
Okay.
you're not
Yeah,
known for
fair,
your design
fair.
for
But I have a
cameras and
question.
shit like
I have
that.
a question. I mean, this is. I'm sure you have a point, like in terms of the convergence, right? But I'm actually curious because there's so many car brands here, and like, there's a lot of talk about the government subsidizing, et cetera, et cetera. The way this kind of stuff gets solved is just like competition, right? And then like if you don't innovate and come up with something new, if all the shit's the same, then all these companies are going to go out of business. That's just how it works. Because if we can't even tell the difference, no one's going to tell the difference, and then they're going to, even if there's 10 that are similar, and if the sales just randomly get spread across the 10, then those 10 will basically go out of business because they won't get enough business. So I'm just curious, like your perspective on the industry is why are there so many copycats? Is it because of some government sort of investment subsidy in it? And then at what point will this sort of like dilute and filter itself out so that you end up with just a couple of main ones? Because like in Japan, like I don't know, like it's basically what Toyota, Nissan, Subaru. I mean, there's the few. But in China, it seems like there's a shitload, and that's not sustainable.
It isn't. So it's funny. The great winnowing of Chinese brands is something that is supposed to have happened for the last 25 years. I mean, people for decades have been saying, like, when's the consolidation going to happen in the Chinese car industry? And it has happened to some point. At a couple of points, like the 2005 or whatever, and maybe a little before that, there were some brands that kind of were absorbed by other brands, but not to an extent that would satisfy the people that want to see true, like, see the market as we think of it as a capitalist way, get rid of the weak players. That still hasn't happened. And there are like over 100 brands. And
100.
Yeah.
I think like what we're looking for is like 5 major brands,
we're
right?
looking for a
then,
big
like,
3. We're
But
looking for
there
the
are.
Chinese big
There
3.
kind of are, though.
Yes.
Right? If you look at, for example, Chang'an, if you look at under Chang'an, there's so many of those new EV companies that are under Chang'an.
Yes. And under and
Or Geely as
or
well.
Geely. My God, they love their brands.
Yeah.
Geely did this like 10, 15 years ago. They made a bunch of brands which ended up having to kill off, and now they're doing it again, and I just can't wait to see.
So what percentage of the 100 are profitable?
Oh, like 1. Yeah. I mean, like
So how
there
do
was
they stay
recently
alive?
the answer is yes. I think that the subsidies pay a major like first of all, to acknowledge a lot of the brands that you're seeing are underneath major corporations. And so the brand itself, so let's say, for example, Chang'an, let's stick with that. You've got Avatar, you've got Nevo, you've got, oh God, there's too many. Let's say Avatar, their high-end brand. Okay, Avatar's not making a ton of money yet. Maybe they're making money at all.
Cool looking car, though.
Very cool.
Let's be honest here.
I've seen a couple on
Let's
the
be
street.
honest here.
Very
I
cool looking.
love Avatar models. They
Right?
drive quite well. But let's say they're not making money yet, but they have a major corporation behind them. The brands that have a hard time, and those major corporations are often state-owned enterprises. And I have no specific numbers as to, like, I don't know if anybody has specific numbers as to what the subsidies that these brands are receiving. And those subsidies can come in various ways. Like, they come from the central government, they can come from the provincial level government, they come from the city level, right? And they could include things like tax breaks, they include things like ease of getting loans from state-owned banks, right? And these are obviously factors. I think that I do not dare to put a timeline on when a consolidation will happen. It needs to happen. There are a bunch of brands that are just just zombie walking through, selling hundreds of models a month, hundreds of cars a month, and their existence is essentially meaningless. But I won't dare to put a number on it because you've got, like, it's something that's supposed to have happened a long time ago.
Yeah, it's insane.
If you were the person that predicted that, in 2010 you predicted by 2015 there will be only, change the time a little bit. If in 2015 you predicted by 2020 there will only be 15 Chinese car brands, you would be so wrong, it wouldn't be, your nose would bleed. Like, that person's head would explode.
I bet there were people saying that too back then.
For sure.
Do you drive a car here?
Good question. No.
Okay.
I live in Shanghai. Our offices are in Songjiang, which is in southwestern Shanghai, for those that don't know. And I live in Xuhui, and more towards the center of the city. My commute is like an hour and 15 minutes.
Wait, why did you choose Songjiang?
I didn't.
Songjiang chose him.
That's right. That's right. So I'll take this back. This will also conveniently tell a little bit of the origin story. But basically, I found out from a friend of a friend that 2 Chinese automotive journalists were looking for a foreigner. This is in 2019. We're looking for a foreigner that spoke Chinese to do car review videos. And I was like, well, I was born for this. So I ended up connecting with them, and over the course of a couple of years, we made videos on the weekends. And then in 2021, April 11th, I'll never forget, was my last full-time job working in marketing, where before I went full-time doing the car reviews. And the reason I'm able to do that is because I can do them in English on YouTube, but also the Chinese platforms. If it was YouTube alone, your boy would be destitute, because it's hard to make money on YouTube. But the reason we're in Songjiang is because my partners, they lived there, and we're already had an office there, and for very practical reasons, like the rent is a hell of a lot cheaper than it would be in the center of the city, right?
Yeah.
And so I have, accepted the fact that I have a very long commute, but that commute is a combination of subway, it's just about 45 or 50 minutes.
What line?
Line 9. Don't narrow it down too much. I'm not people creeps waiting for me.
Why are you asking what line?
What's your address?
No.
That's such a weird question to ask.
Like, you're weird for asking that. I mean, for commenting
Eric
that.
always gets into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I know.
He's the nitty gritty.
No, line 9. No, which
No,
car?
line 9,
When you-
because the last stop is like Songjiang or something.
Songjiang,
like.
Nanjiang,
Which
yeah.
exit do you take when you get to the station?
Well, usually I do exit 3, but sometimes if I'm feeling really spicy, I go for exit 4.
Because I'm down there sometimes. The reason I mentioned this, I'm in Qingpu sometimes.
Well, we can add WeChat, so that's not the way to get this information.
How far are you from Qingpu?
From Qingpu, not that close. Okay. So I have this time on the subway, right?
Yeah.
And then I have a 20-minute, 25-minute bike ride from the subway to the office. And
in this weather?
it's fantastic. And I choose that lifestyle. Could I afford a car? Yes. I couldn't afford most of the cars that I review, but I could afford some of the cheaper cars that I review. I choose not to do that because, one, it's just they're still pretty expensive, and having a car in Shanghai is very expensive.
Yep.
Parking it, it's just it's such a pain. I also really enjoy the fact that as opposed to having a, say, 40 to 45-minute commute in the morning, depending on when I left, in a car, in which the only thing I can do is drive and maybe listen to a beautiful podcast like The Honest Drink, I instead have 40 to 50 minutes on the subway where I can read a book, where I can practice a script, where I can write a script, where I can do any number of things, post on Instagram,
Throw it on auto drive, man. Come on, lean back, throw it on auto
Ooh,
drive.
let's talk about ADAS in a minute.
No, you have a driver. No.
That's right. But I have that, and then at the end of it, I have a 20 to 25-minute bike ride. So I get
Exercise,
40 minutes of cardio a day.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Your boy would be a hell of a lot fatter than he is if he did not get 40 minutes of cardio 4 to 5 times a week.
Do you shower at the office?
Yeah.
No, I just make them suffer. I just let them smell the stink.
I get you though, because I got a car last year, a little over a year ago, but before that I commuted by subway every day, and I miss that now. I miss my time on the subway, as crazy that sounds.
That's good.
It was kind of meditative.
I will acknowledge an important factor in this is the fact that because I'm going from the city center to the suburbs and then reverse of that at the end of the day, I am missing the incredibly sardine-packed subway lines, right? The subway cars. If I had to do the other version, which is go from Songjiang to the city center,
forget about it.
Oh my God, I
You'd be standing the whole time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You're standing and you wouldn't be able to
crushed.
move. I mean, you absolutely crushed. And so I look across from my empty subway car to the subway cars across from me, just like, oh, you poor bastards. I mean, that must really suck.
You got a good commute then.
But
Yes.
that's same with highways. You've had a car, people driving into the city. It's like bumper to bumper traffic, driving away from the city.
Yeah.
Coast is
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
pick your poison here. I mean, but I'll tell you though, this year is the first year since I've been in Shanghai for the last 14, 15 years already. This is the first year I have road rage again. I used to be calm and tranquil, man. I knew the deal here. I knew pedestrians, scooters. Like, I've been living here long enough. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't faze me. But I'll tell you, I don't know what it is, but I've been losing my patience
Okay, tell me what's
these
that
past
like?
few months.
Yeah, I want to know
What's that like?
what are your
I-
triggers?
Because you're pretty chill.
I'm really chill, but I've been getting road
You
rage.
see Eric's everywhere.
So,
His fists, his white knuckled fists.
so I'll
right
tell
now,
you
if
how
could
bad
see
it's
them.
gotten. And again, I'm not gonna. We'll turn this back on you, but I don't want to make this all about me. But I picked my mother-in-law from the airport
It's a bad start.
the other day.
This is a classic. So he's like, this stuff's making me mad. So I pick up my mother-in-law. It's like the beginning of this is the beginning of a middle-aged man joke from the 70s.
Okay, so we're driving back from Pudong Airport. She's in the car. It's just me and her.
Oof.
And I'm on.
It's getting worse, dude.
And you know, it's cordial. We haven't seen each other in 2 weeks, and you know, we have a good relationship, me and her. So
It's cordial.
yeah, we're driving back, and then I'm on the highway, and I notice somebody for no reason just tailgating me, honking at me. Beep 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 beep, honking, tailgating, honking, and then he was, I think it was a BMW he was driving.
Makes sense.
Typical.
And then he was like swerving, and he was like swerving to the right, trying to see around me. And there's a car in front of me, so even if I wanted to go faster, I couldn't. There's literally, I'm right behind another car, and then he got beep 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 beep, and then oh man, and then so he finally pulls around and he starts like creeping up towards me, right? And I know like I'm ready for the eye contact. I'm fucking ready for the eye. So I'm like, and my mother-in-law has no idea what's going on. She doesn't know any of this is
adjusting
going
his
on.
seat
Backing it right
position,
now.
yeah.
Look at him. He's backing
He's
it right
seriously-
now.
this is
And
trauma.
And as I see this car pulling up, I'm ready. I roll down her window, and she's like, "Why are you rolling down my window?"
Oh my God, this poor woman.
And as he pulls up, I stick my hand right in front of her face, and I give that guy the finger. I'm like, "Fuck you!"
He nearly punches his mother-in-law
a
in the
guy?
face.
What?
It was a
yeah,
guy?
yeah, it was a guy. And you know he was ready too, because he was creeping up already, like looking at me, like he was like rolling his window down. He wanted to say something to me. And I'm like, I'm fucking. And then we get into this road battle, like in the highway, where like he's going in front of me, trying to like stomp on his brakes to like scare me. I'm swerving around him. And meanwhile, my mother-in-law's freaking out in the passenger seat. Right, I'm losing my cool.
What is she saying to you? Like,
And she's-
Justin, but
no, she's just like holding on for dear life, right?
She's got the oh shit
thinks
handle.
you're crazy,
The
too.
funny thing is, she's never seen this side of me ever. Right? So in the house, like the whole time she's ever known me,
So
she's
docile.
known me as this calm, quiet guy. I don't lose my cool, very patient. I never fa pi chi, right? And she's like just freaking out. And this wouldn't have
crying.
happened if I hadn't been driving here for as long as I have.
I'm pissed off now at that.
He's like bothering all these other cars too. So I don't know what the guy's deal
It's
was.
his shit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also generally am pretty calm. The times I get really mad driving, or when I get mad at myself, and it's usually like I miss a turn for the third time, you know, which was a big problem when I first came here because I was so used to having everything measured in miles, and boy, does a mile feel a lot longer than a kilometer when you're driving down the highway, and it's like
Totally.
2 kilometers away from the exit.
Well,
and
and you're
I'm-
probably trying to like. What I do is like you optimize, right? Like you're not willing to
No.
just right.
No, I'm
you're
not gonna go-
willing to go to the rightmost lane and just wait it out. Like you want to speed up and go, and then you miss it because you can't cut over fast enough.
Optimize,
right?
exactly. You're
Yes,
optimizing.
yes, and then you optimize yourself out of making the turn. And I would know because I've done it so many times. But yeah, that's the only time I get really mad. But it's funny when I'm running with my girlfriend, doesn't have a license, and so she's just not used to driving on the roads here or anywhere really. And she gets so much more mad at the people around me, and it's very funny how I balance that out. My personality, like the more angry she gets, I'm more like, it's cool. It's cool. Let's just let him go. Like we get cut off by this. I remember one time we were waiting. We were in Unsure in Hubei. It's in Hubei. It's in Hubei, right? In Hubei province, anyways. That we were on vacation and we were just waiting in this gigantic line to get into some scenic place, and this Mercedes, very expensive Mercedes, just absolutely comes out of nowhere and just dives in front of us in the line. And my reaction was like, look at that asshole. What are you going to do, you know? And she was
What are you gonna do?
what are you going to do? And she
Say
was
la
like
vie.
about to get out of the car and like fight the woman in the passenger seat. And I'm like, let's not do that. That's not worth it. So in most cases, I just go,
Wow, that's calm.
what are you going to do, you know? Because the logic I use with her is I'm not gonna let them ruin my day because that's what's happening, right? And it's not something I've never done because I've definitely done it. But I always try to make it like, let's think about the rest of the day or even just the next hour. If I let this person really piss me off, it is going to fuck up my entire commute. Or if I just go, if I just go like, there they go. Must be horrible to be them.
You
know?
are a better person than all of us.
The reframing. And it's also, I think, like, well, it's an excellent job of reframing, but also because you speak from experience. Because I don't get into that situation because I don't drive. But there are situations where I, like, literally, want to commit a felony, right?
Yes.
And then I'm just like, well, it's not going to do me any good to go to the, get dragged to the police station.
Okay, now let's all go around and talk about which felonies we want to commit.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, what you want to do, like you rationally, like what you want to do in that moment is actually beat the shit out of someone. You can't because then you'll go to jail. And you know what happens in China, right? If you assault anyone in China, you're going to go to the jail and then you're going to be fucked. So I just have to remind myself of that.
Hard to run a car review YouTube channel from jail, as I understand it. Drug operations, apparently possible. YouTube channels, much harder.
So going back to that question that I was asking you, because I want to get some inside scoop from you, your opinions.
Oh, yeah. What are my favorite ones?
Yeah, like honestly, what you're some of your
He's trying to
favorite
bring
cars.
it back. He's like the one that invited him over, and we're just like,
We're hijacking the conversation from him.
It's like, yeah, so what's your favorite pizza?
I mean, I definitely have brands that I like because I think that they consistently deliver and produce cars that are good. I mean, like I do like BYD a lot. There's a reason that we purchased the BYD Yuan Plus as our company car. And it's because we looked at that market of compact electric SUVs and went, this was true in 2020, end of 2021 or whatever when we put the order in. And then it's still true today, I think. Like, that's a really great car. We also have a BYD dealership like 100 meters from our office, which makes it convenient. But then there's also things they do where I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? What is happening? The designs, like some of the interior designs on BYDs are absolutely hilarious. And I have spoken with the designers, right? And the BYD Yuan Plus specifically, the interior design is there are three major themes that you can pick and you can find. There is the ocean, the gym, and music.
The gym.
The gym.
As
the
like
gym.
a theme of design for
Yes.
the car? Okay.
So, for example, like the dashboard, or gym aesthetics, or the dashboard is supposed to look like muscle fibers, right? There's a ripple effect to it. Think of like a bodybuilder's.
I see that.
And it does. It mission accomplished, guys.
Mission accomplished.
It's a bit of a. It is a bit of a. Maybe not the best mission to give yourself. Or maybe they should have just stuck with that theme. Or the doors actually kind of look like, the door handles kind of look like barbells.
It's like a bicep.
Yeah, it's just a big arm. But
This really speaks to Eric. He would love that car.
Yeah.
yeah,
all
well,
the
no.
push-ups he does.
You didn't have to tell me. I came in, I said, Eric, that's the guy that clearly spends a ton of time in the gym. Of the three of you, Eric seems like the one who's doing a ton of
It's more their physiques rather than my physique.
incline press. He's addicted to the incline press.
Yeah.
So, I do like BYD. A lot of these newer brands, like I like a Li Auto for what it offers because I think Li Auto is really smart. Li Auto doesn't mess around. They're like, we're gonna make the best family car, and we're not going to try to make the best family car that also claims to be the electric Porsche, right? They go, this car it's not going to be fun to drive, get over it, but it's going to have a big ass rear screen. It's going to be very comfortable. It's going to have crazy.
It's very comfortable.
Li Auto makes a great family car.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I like Zeekr. I think Zeekr, like the 001, is pretty phenomenal value.
That's a really nice. I've only sat in it once. I was impressed sitting in it, and I was like, damn. Because I know they're kind of in the same family with Lincoln Co., but Lincoln Co. to me is just because you're called Lincoln Co. and just the logo just makes me feel like you guys suck. Like I can't even take you seriously.
Do you know what the code? Do you know what the code stands for? Though?
Brand.
Do you know what the code stands for?
No.
What do you think it stands for?
Company.
False. Connected.
What?
Do you hate them even more now?
Horrible.
Yes.
Lincoln
Because
connected.
isn't that just redundant?
The goofiest
If you're linked,
shit.
you're already connected.
Side note, let's talk about when it comes to Chinese car names and like I hate the fact that Chinese brands will put out a English name. So I'll give you two examples that I really love. There's one called Wenjie, which is Aito. which is the joint venture between Ceres
Huawei.
and Huawei. Yes.
Yeah.
So they make pretty good cars, but
Yeah.
ITO is allegedly it's an acronym, right? It stands for Adding Intelligence to Auto. What's the problem with that, boys?
The last letter.
Yeah, Otto, OTTO, the German friend you have. You want to add some intelligence to your buddy Otto? Like, it's the dumbest thing. And then, Mona, which is a new series from Xpeng, right? The Mona 03, which is a new sedan.
Mona?
MONA, which is an acronym for what do you think?
Oh no.
Made of new AI.
Oh no.
So not only is that just patently false as an acronym because AI is an acronym,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't
It's a
make any
double
sense.
acronym.
So it should be Monai. It also is so cartoonishly 2024 because it's got to have AI in it, and it
Yeah.
makes me want to throw up.
But even with BYD, like build your dream, like I don't want those words on the back of my car.
Gone. Good news.
Okay.
They finally, after hearing the screams of so many people, all the foreign versions and the new versions of the car, they just have a big BYD
Thank
logo.
you.
Nice.
'Cause-
But wait, but also domestic versions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good job.
The I had the opportunity along with some other
BYD.
media. It was the Shanghai Auto Show last year. We were invited by the head of external PR, so like obviously outside of China for BYD to do an event where he just brought us over, did a PowerPoint presentation, and then spoke to us for a bit. And he asked us to. He offered he's like, let me open up the floor to questions, and I was like, this is a bad idea. And one of the first ones was I can't remember if it was me. I don't want to take credit for this because it was a pretty brave question to ask, so I won't take credit. It was someone there was like, so when are you going to get rid of Build Your Dreams? Like every audience member I have wants me to ask you, when are you going to get rid
And
of Build
everyone's
Your
like,
Dreams?
just finally.
Yes, and he was like, "Oh, you guys don't like it?" And we were like, one collective voice, the zeitgeist, like, "No, stop, please, it's bad."
Yeah.
And he goes like, "Oh, okay." Like I think from the vibe that I got, that seems like an internal battle that the external like international marketing team was having with BYD in China, because here in the Chinese market, I don't think that many Chinese buyers were put off by it.
They can't understand it.
They don't understand it.
Most of the people.
Yeah, and
But even if they did, it's like so like
Whatever.
that kind of phrase is like so
well,
like
the sensibility
normalized.
is sensibility is different because people in Western countries don't like a lot of like the brand words on on your stuff, especially a car.
generally, yeah. And so, and it just like when I tried to explain it to them and I translated, I was like, it just sounds so condescending, almost so patronizing. Like BYD is my second grade teacher who's just leaning down to talk to me and be like, "Remember, build your dreams." Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Big yucky dump.
Big yes, or be your daddy was what.
Be your daddy.
But yes, that is gone, thankfully.
I mean, how much do these EVs cost
They're
these days?
cheap
Like
too, right?
three.
A regular one. I mean, you can get
400,000.
Less.
RMB.
Less.
My friend, 100,000.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
so-
can get like an electric sedan with a decent range for like 115.
Okay, how much is a Tesla here in China?
250 something.
That's not okay. So if you had 300,000 RMB, what would you buy?
Oh, the classic question. The classic question that
Is
I
that a
always
classic
get.
question?
It is. It's the classic. It's like, though at least you phrased it in a way that I find much more easy to answer, because the more you learn about cars, the harder it is to answer the question of what's your favorite car, right? Because it's like, well, what's the situation? So under 300,000 RMB,
Yeah.
I had to buy. Let me narrow it down even further.
Yeah,
SUV or sedan?
sedan.
Sedan.
No, you're living. Let's not even do it. Let's say you're living in the city. You're living in Shanghai.
Wait, hold
What
on.
car
Yeah,
do you-
okay, but let's back up a bit. Do you if you had to choose between an SUV or sedan in general as a category, which one would you choose?
For my lifestyle, I think I would be fine with having a sedan. As a male in his early 30s.
You're like,
No, I'll do the Chinese style. And I'll just tell you I was born in 1991, and then make you do the math. The sedan would be fine for my right. Can we talk about that for a second? Because I always find that so funny. And it's not a thing I feel like culturally to hide your age. It's because I think it really matters to people what decade you were born in. I think it's taken as a meaningful thing maybe, and so because it's like baling ho, jolting ho. That's just like the decades. And so,
That is true though.
right. And I so often, I will be like, well, how old are you? And they'll be like, I was born in 92. I'm like, don't make me do that.
That's so true.
You rude
Now that you're
ass.
saying
Don't make
this
me.
is so true.
Yeah, they rarely. Sometimes they do, but they rarely just say the age. They'll say the year they were born.
Even just recently,
You
I was
gotta
just
calculate.
in Austria for a shoot, and then my clients and my production team were trying to guess my age, and the first question was, Howie, how old are you? I'm like, how old do you think I am? They're like, Bachi. I'm like,
Bachi.
87 years old, and they're like, no, Bachi, yeah. I'm like, oh. Why? What? How old is Bachi? I'm just like doing math in my head.
Yeah, you're making you're doing reverse math. I'm like, don't do this.
Yeah.
Just tell me how old you are, or be like, I don't want to say. Okay, fine. But yeah, as a man in his early 30s, we'll go back to that phrasing. Electric sedan. I'll expand it because I love wagons. So I think at that price point, I do think the Zeekr 001 in that category. And personally, one of the things I tell people all the time, as someone who has driven essentially every fast Chinese electric vehicle, right? We're talking about stuff that does 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, 0 to 62 miles per hour in like 3 seconds. You drive those cars for a while, and then it's boring. If I personally bought an electric vehicle, I would get the single motor version with the biggest battery pack I could get and the longest range, and I'd be perfectly fine because they're so fast.
It's still
enough.
powerful.
Yeah. I mean, it's
still ridiculously powerful. and
Ridiculous.
fast,
So this
right?
is the one.
Yes, that's the 001. The reality is, and one of the issues with electric vehicles is that it's so much harder to make it interesting because once you have driven your electric car from 0 to 100 in faster, like so fast it gives you a headache a few times, it's not that interesting anymore.
Yeah.
Not that exciting.
Yeah.
And another thing that a lot of people don't think about is that the performance version of an electric vehicle in 75% of driving situations is indistinguishable from the base version. Because most of the time you drive around the city with 30% throttle, so you never really get deep into the throttle enough or the pedal enough to actually experience the crazy power that the dual motor has. And then, as I bang my watch on things, if you think about a Ford Mustang, right? Right now you can get one with a 4-cylinder or a V8. If you're sitting in a you're sitting at a stoplight, right? You're in a V8 Mustang because it's going and you can feel the seat vibrating. The whole car feels different than the 4-cylinder, right? If you're sitting at a stoplight in the fastest EV on earth, you have no idea because there's no noise. And when you're cruising around the city at 30% throttle in the V8, you hear it, you feel it, you know it. It's a different experience. Versus with the electric car, there's nothing. And so it's a real problem for enthusiasts and for auto manufacturers to find a way to capture enthusiasm for electric cars because it's just like, this doesn't make my heart race at all.
Do you think there's going to be a car maker that's going to artificially kind of create those like real like combustion engine feedbacks
Well, my friend,
just to give you that experience?
I have news for you. Hyundai Ioniq 5, which I drove at Tianma, the racetrack here, one of the racetracks here in Shanghai. It's got like 640 horsepower, dual electric motor powertrain, but that's not the exciting part. The exciting part is that car actually has a mode in which not only does it imitate the exhaust note of a ICE car, specifically the 2-liter turbo in their Elantra N, it also imitates a dual clutch transmission. So you can use the paddles to shift the car as if
And
you were...
feel like it's
and-
shifting.
Is there
Yeah.
a vibration?
There's no vibration, but you feel right. So, like, if for example, it's very realistic. So, for example, if you're driving around at 50 kilometers per hour,
Make the noise. Make the noise.
oh, well, I will. I know I will. Ready? Because you're driving around at 50 kilometers per hour, and then the engine's going. Now I'm trying to think about that guy. You got me really deep in my head here about how to imitate this noise properly. Because what I'm trying to say is that if you're downshift, let's say you're driving along at 50 kilometers per hour and the engine's like ma, and then you upshift from like 3rd to 5th, it goes bo, because it's called bogging down,
Yeah.
like an actual internal combustion engine would. The RPMs would drop so low, and then you would hit the throttle,
And it go,
it would accelerate much more slowly. So it imitates not just in like every aspect of it essentially.
Oh, not just the sound,
Wait,
but
so
the
the
actual
sound comes from what?
Speakers.
Speakers?
Yes.
So
So
this
it's
is Hyundai.
Hyundai Ioniq 5N. Yes.
Hyundai is Korean, right? Is
Yeah,
that-
yeah.
They and they make, apart from the Chinese cars, I think, like the best electric vehicles.
Well, I know that the Western reviews of the Ioniq 5 are just great.
Yeah, they love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Man,
I
this Zeekr looks amazing on the inside.
You're still on this,
Dude.
Eric's gonna pull up in this
gotta-
car next time.
I'll
we
send
do
this
podcast.
to the
Shit, man.
I'll
They-
send this to the Zeekr
They
marketing
had
team.
me at the fucking intelligent cockpit.
Hook us up, Ethan.
No, Zeekr
Hook
is
us
nice.
up.
I remember sitting once in a DD. It was a Zeekr that came to pick me up, and I was like, damn.
What fucking DD do you use that you're getting picked up by? Is it a 001?
001.
This is 300 grand? 280?
289.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Probably you can get a little bit of a rebate, maybe.
But if you were to buy a car here, do you think you would be able to get like a special deal just because of who you are, what you do?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I certainly think that there would be companies that would want to encourage me to buy their car.
Especially
because,
since you do reviews, of course.
yeah, because they
That's a
would
big
want
thing.
me to make content about it. And to be honest with you, that would be a factor in a car that I would choose. I mean, this is a thing that no normal person would consider, right? Is that, you know, I have to consider, if I wanted to, how could I better monetize my decision to buy this car? So that might make me choose a car that is a little more controversial or something like that. Like I might be more enthusiastic about buying the Xiaomi SU7, the SU7, because I knew that I could make multiple videos about it and make a little bit of money back off of it, versus, you know, getting a 001.
Well, I want to ask you something. I know you don't have a crystal ball, but if you were to guess in 10 years from now, what are the 5 Chinese EV brands that are still around?
I will. So what I'm gonna, I think the state-owned automakers are all safe. I mean, I just don't think that there's.
So which
going
ones
to
are
be,
those?
Chang'an, also SAIC, BAIC. These are essentially just employment. Their value is to the government is to be able to employ people, and so, you know, that's why it's difficult for a private company like General Motors to have a relationship with an SAIC, because they have a joint venture brand and they're looking at sales and they're not selling cars, but they're still manufacturing cars at a high rate. And maybe General Motors or another private company might go to this state-owned enterprise and say, hey, we need to close the factories. We need to stop production for at least a week in order to catch up, because we've got, you know, 500 days of supply on our dealer lots. And the brand says, we completely agree. The state-owned company says, we completely agree with you. We should do that, you know, financially. Then they get a call from the mayor of the city they're in, and that mayor says, oh, yeah, no, you can't do that because we need to meet the numbers for GDP. And the GDP doesn't matter if you sell the car. It just matters that you make the car. And so these are the factors that are going to get in the way of these joint venture relationships in this specific case, but also in the way of actually consolidating these state-owned companies. So if I focus more on what they call Xin Shili, the new brands, right? Your Li Autos, your Neos, your Xpungs. I'll put BYD in there, even though they're not really new. You know, they've been around for a while. I mean, BYD for sure. Li Auto, I think, though they have to manage their transition to pure electric models.
But they're one of the top sellers across the country, though, aren't they?
In their category, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're doing great. But they were targeting 800,000 units this year, which would have put them over, they call BBA, right? Beamer, Benz, and Audi, right? It would have put them over the Germans in terms of annual sales. Because the launch of the Li Auto Mega, a car that they claimed was going to sell 10,000 units a month, which would make it the best-selling car over 500,000 RMB, which previously was the BMW, the locally built X5. That was their claim. Now they have not done that.
The coffin?
The coffin. There you go. So it got into the zeitgeist that the Li Auto Mega looks like a coffin. I don't understand that at all. I don't get it. But in China, obviously, in most places, generally, association with death, not a good thing. So that became a big meme online, and that, I think, killed a lot of sales. So Li Auto, Xpeng, and Neo,
That's weird, right?
Neo has, and I love the Neo bros on Twitter. I'm not even on Twitter very much. I mostly get screenshots from my friends that are on Twitter who have to interact with these people, and it's the funniest shit ever because it's like Tesla people, right? Tesla stands and stuff. they just have no concept of what Chinese car market, what's actually happening in the Chinese car market and where NIO stands in the Chinese car market. So they'll like take a graph in Chinese and just kind of translate it however they see fit, you know, to make it sound like NIO's doing great. Or they'll go to, anytime you review a car that's not a NIO, they're like, you're clearly taking money because you say this car is good. But then you review a NIO and you say it's good, they're like, you're my favorite reviewer.
Who are these people?
So like Neo evangelists, right?
Neo, yeah, Neo.
But why would you get so caught up in one
Are
particular?
they paid by Neo?
No,
No.
because they've invested in NIO.
Yeah, the stock. The stock is so low right now that
Yeah.
they cannot back out.
They can.
It's like you cannot. You lost so much money, you cannot back out.
So you can understand the angst, you know, when you point out that
It's like crypto bros who like are really into crypto. They want to, if you say anything negative about crypto,
FUD. Don't be fudding me, bro.
is that what they say?
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD. So one of the NIO saving graces is they do have the battery swapping systems, which have gotten investment from big brands.
well, now they're collaborating with other automakers.
Yeah, Chang'an and Geely, I believe, are the two. Geely for sure. I think the other one is Chang'an.
Yeah, Chang'an.
Yep, they have bought into the battery swapping tech, and so they want to offer it through their cars. You know, and there's a hour and a half long debate to be had about whether battery swapping is a viable solution to this, considering the speeds that charging are getting up to. But we don't have to have that now. So I'm not positive about NIO, but there's a much more solid chance that they have enough value built in that somebody will want them, you know, to keep them going. And then Xpeng already got buy-in from Volkswagen, so I think they're probably a pretty safe bet, though. I don't know how long Volkswagen's going to last in China. Volkswagen, General Motors, like that's the funny thing to think about is not at the same time as you think about which Chinese brands are going to be around in 5 years, which foreign brands are going to be around and sell in China in 5 years? Are the Koreans? Probably not. Well,
they're slowly just getting like backing out, right? And almost
Yeah,
it seems
it's-
like
They're
it
going to
feels
get
that
bought,
way.
right?
Yeah.
They get bought by the Chinese.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, they're, you know, it would be harder for them to buy out somebody that big because they're still selling so well in other places. But
Yeah.
like, I just think like there's speaking as an American, this brings me no joy. There's a very solid chance that General Motors is essentially going to be gone from China or an inconsequential player in the Chinese market within the next 5 years. And the people with whom I speak to in General Motors, they know that, you know. For years, these brands just lived under a rock and were like, they raked in cash from the Chinese market. Everyone complains about, oh, well, you know, they had to be in these joint ventures and this technology transfer and stuff. That technology that they got transferred over, maybe on the manufacturing side and that kind of know-how helped the Chinese manufacturers, but the tech that the Chinese manufacturers are using now to beat them is not the tech that they use to make all those sales, right? And so you have these people were just raking in cash, these brands, and just let the Chinese manufacturers sprint past them. They just sat there and lived in denial for years.
They got fat and lazy, right?
They got fat and lazy, of course. And so they're absolutely paying the price for that. And you're seeing it in the incredible sales drops in not just brands like General Motors and more mainstream brands like Chevy and stuff like that. Chevy's always been shit in China, but
even Ford is going down.
Ford peaked in 2018 and went downhill from there. You know, it's also premium manufacturers, your BBA, your Beamer Benz and Audi, and then also Porsche. You know, if Porsche's sales are down like 30% this year, and obviously one factor is the economy. People aren't buying cars right now, especially expensive vehicles. But there is a non-zero factor in that is the fact that people are buying other brands. And so, you know, Porsche is the golden goose for Volkswagen in China. And if Porsche goes down, right, VW is absolutely screwed.
Well, VW sales are down as well, like in a major way.
The VW brand itself, not Volkswagen Group, but VW brand itself was outsold by BYD as of now. And so,
which is crazy considering if you go back like 10, 20 years, like VW was sitting on top. Like,
they were the first.
Yeah.
They were the first ones to come into China.
the Santana,
Yes.
right?
Santana.
All the taxis were
Yeah,
for that.
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the Passats.
Yeah, then the Passats took over.
Yes.
Eric has kicked down many of a door of a Passat.
Kampai Classic.
Okay, no, this has been wonderful, but I want to save time in the conversation with you, Ethan, to talk a little bit more maybe about your background, because we have some shared commonalities in terms of maybe where we grew up. You know, one thing I always like to ask our guests who are foreigners here is, you know, why China? Why did you come here? Why are you here? Why do you remain here? What's the deal with that?
Oh,
What's the deal with that?
What's the deal with that?
what is wrong with you?
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
You sound like everyone from my hometown.
Where are you from, by the way?
Burlington, North Carolina, B-town, baby.
NC.
Yes, not home of Burlington Coat Factory, as so many people like to ask me back in the
Yes,
States. Like
that's a Jersey thing,
I
actually. Is it?
thought it was Vermont.
Is it?
So what part of like northeast, southwest of North Carolina?
So center,
Center?
pretty
Near-
much the center.
How far from
Which
I don't
line?
know.
He wants to know which
How
line you
far
get
from
off.
Chapel Hill? How
It's
far
line 9.
How far from Chapel Hill?
It's actually about 45 minutes from Chapel Hill, which is where I did my undergrad. You know, it's funny. Unsurprisingly, I've been asked that quite a lot by foreigners, by Chinese people, you know, and I don't know that I've ever come up with a fantastic answer to it. To start with, it was just one of those things where, I mean, it was the language that got me into it.
You studied Chinese, didn't you?
Yeah, it's funny. Originally I studied Spanish in high school, right, for like 2 years, and I didn't speak a lick of Spanish. And the reason wasn't because Spanish was incredibly hard to learn. It's because I wasn't that interested in it. And yet when I started studying Chinese in the first semester sophomore year of university, I was like, all right, this I
is
can
interesting.
do. This is interesting. I was suddenly found myself willing to sit in front of the TV for 3 hours doing flashcards. And I was walking down the street. This is a habit I still have to this day. Walking down the street practicing my Chinese pronunciation.
Yelling at Chinese people like, ni hao.
Practicing my tones, right? And so I still do that today. And I remember getting like caught multiple times on UNC Chapel Hill's campus, like being like ma, 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 ma. Like and people just being like, what the fuck's wrong with
What's wrong with this guy?
dude? So I just found that was my in, and the reason I got interested in the language in the first place because I was a bit just interested in the culture and the economics and the political system. I mean, like when I was I remember specifically in my first year of high school, I was reading a book called The China Fantasy, which the author of which. It was an interesting book. It was basically about the kind of the idea. This was after China had been let into the
WTO.
WTO, thank you, sir. And essentially, the fantasy that China was going to reform itself because it was now part of the WTO and change the way that it did things. And this collective idea internationally that all of a sudden China was just going to become a capitalist, like freedom-loving haven of, you know, democracy or whatever is just kind of ridiculous. That was the author's essential. Like, do you remember the author's name? Oh, John something. Either way, it's very easy to Google
Interesting
things.
choice as a 13, 14-year-old.
Well, yeah, and that was
He
you
thought
know,
it was like the China fantasy.
well, the literally on that note,
There's no pictures inside.
It was like freshman. It was some class I had to take for freshman year, and the teacher was this like wrestler guy who, in retrospect, was maybe he's now 10. He was at the time 10 years younger than I am now, so not the most mature person. When he was from across the room, he was like, "Robertson, what are you reading?" And I was like, "The China Fantasy," and he goes, "The Vagina Fantasy." But yeah, I mean, like I was the kid when my mom went to get her hair cut. Right, I was at the hair salon, and there's a bunch of magazines. If there were no car magazines, I'm going to read National Geographic or The Economist. And I'm not saying this to make it sound as like if I was some sort of like a beautiful child savant, you know, but it was just the kind of stuff that I was interested in. And so when you get interested in economics and international relations and stuff, you have to learn about China. I mean, there's just no way around it. And so that got me into that as a topic. And so when I went to university, my father, when he found out that I was like reading these books about China and stuff, was like, "You should learn Chinese," because he obviously was just like he just saw money signs, right? Just a very practical dad. He said you got to have a skill that most people don't have in order to separate yourself, and a lot of people speak Spanish. I certainly couldn't, and so it was just, you know, it was just luck that when I got into it again, I realized I had a real passion for it. And my first time in China was in 2013. I did a 6-month exchange program, if you want to call it that, was 4 months in Beijing and 2 months in Shanghai. The 4 months in Beijing was a language program. Do you know CET? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was with CET, shout out. And it was one of the programs where we had a language pledge. So it was 4 months in Beijing where I had a language pledge. If I got caught speaking English 3 times, a 3-strike policy. If you get caught, you get kicked out. And I was there thanks to the largesse of a wonderful couple, the Bonapartes from New York City, who paid for this fellowship. And so I did not want to waste their money. And I ended up getting through the program without getting, I'm not going to say I didn't speak English, but I didn't get caught speaking English.
Yeah.
And it really helped my Chinese, unsurprisingly.
Of course, you get forced.
Yeah, basically. It's a sink or swim thing. And luckily I swam. And then I went back and I said, I know I really want to live in China. I want to go back to China, but I don't want to be an English teacher. I have no problems with teachers. My sister is a teacher, but that's the reason that I don't want to be a teacher, is because I think if you're going to be a teacher, you should be a good teacher. You should want to be a teacher, and you shouldn't just be doing it to make a little bit of money and have a fun year, you know? And I've further solidified that opinion because of the number of times, and stop me if you've heard this one, you've met someone who came to China, I'm just going to stay in China for a year and teach English. And then they realize, well, let me check my watch. It's been 10 years. And I now am a early 30s person who has no work experience in things that I want to do. And I'm not certified to actually teach in the country I'm from. So what am I going to do? And this is, I mean, I feel bad for a person in that situation, but it's not a situation I wanted to find myself in. So I came to do a master's. So I lived in Wuhan for 4 years from 2014 to 2018, got out right in time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Timed that.
And then came to Shanghai to work.
You said you got your master's in marketing? Is that what? Or?
Undergrad was marketing and
marketing.
PR, and my master's was in international relations. But the purpose of that really was just for the Chinese language. It was taught in Chinese. And so that was what really pushed me. And then having Chinese roommates and stuff, I chose Wuhan because it was not Beijing or Shanghai. And I knew that if I came to Beijing or Shanghai, I could very easily gather a community of other foreigners around me.
Yeah.
I would not improve my Chinese nearly as much. Yeah. And so I'm very grateful that I was able to be in Wuhan. By the time the 4 years was up, I was like, well, let's go to Shanghai. You know, Wuhan is a great place to study. That's why there's like 500 universities there. But when it came time for me to find a job and work, I was like, I'm going to go to Shanghai. To this day, I don't know, in terms of why I've stayed, perhaps it's a sunk cost fallacy. And then I put so much time and effort into learning Chinese at this point and learning the culture and the community that even if I wasn't doing my dream job at this point, I probably would still stay. Now it's a combination of like, there's this thing I've spent so much time learning, and I almost said the word perfecting, which is a laughable description of my Chinese. But this thing I've learned, but I really am doing what I always dreamed of doing. Like I never thought, dreamed is probably not accurate because I never even dreamed that I would be able to get paid to drive a different car every week, to travel around China and in this point, the globe, to drive different cars. And have people like want to see it, you know?
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Honestly, how many really legit auto reviewers are there out in the world? Like, you know, there's only a handful, honestly. And especially if you're in China and you're an English speaking one, I would say you're in the forefront. And
oh yeah,
that's very unique.
I think maybe something, I don't know, like, I don't like, maybe something you don't even get enough credit for is the fact that you're here. Like if you're reviewing EVs, I mean, you're here, you're ground zero. Like this is where you have to be if you really want to get into the EV topic. And I don't know, that's a really cool position to be in.
Yeah. I think if you look at the number of reviewers that are doing what I'm doing here in China, I mean, there is a huge and successful and talented pool of Chinese media, of course. But in terms of being a foreigner, basically, or an English speaker, I'll even say, who's reporting on Chinese cars here, there's like an extremely small community.
Yeah, or just like Western facing, you know, like in terms of like the audience you're speaking to a lot of times as well. You know, coming from America, given the politics these days, especially how it's heating up in the States, do you find it harder to stay, or do you get any pushback from, let's say, your family, friends, or whoever back home that you're here at all?
On when it comes to, it gets easier to stay, honestly. In terms of the politics back in the States.
How so?
Because I don't want to interact with it. You know, like that I knew going into this year, one of the things I looked forward to the least was the questions that I knew I would get, or people would be like, so the election. And I'm just like, oh God, can I crawl in a hole? Can I not have to try and answer this? And that's why I'm actually very careful about who I tell I have a master's in international relations, because when you tell people that, they're like, oh, you have the answer. Oh,
You're the
so you're the guy I've been looking for that can tell me. I had a great experience. I had a wonderful time in Riyadh, I should say. The people there were very nice. I obviously was a little intimidated because of the stark differences in culture when going there, but it was great. The food was delicious. I recommend people check it out. On the plane over there, I talked to a super nice guy who was actually from Lebanon, and it was so funny. I was like, okay, this guy's pretty nice. This will be interesting conversation, maybe throughout the 10-hour flight. His second question was, so Israel, Palestine. He was like, yeah, what do you think of that? And I was like, oh,
Jesus.
And I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty sure based on the little that I know about you, you're probably not pro-Israel, this person, and what's happening. But I just like, thank you for really throwing the fastest, hardest curveball you could at me in the second question.
So what did you do? Did you just not answer? Did you answer? Like,
I tried to do that thing where, because I didn't know what answer he
Come again?
wanted.
Did we just take off?
I saw it was like a team
what's Israel?
Just took a sleeping
what's
pill.
Palestine?
Yeah. I think the first thing I said was like, well, I haven't really informed myself about it enough to really have I think a valid opinion about it or whatever. And he's like pushing me. He's like, but don't you think America should like stop selling missiles to Israel? And I'm like, admittedly, yeah, I do wish. And he like slowly peeled out of me that I was pro-Palestine, and like it was very it was just very interesting.
It was like an interrogation.
It was, yeah. And then there was the only other experience I had of that on the trip was at one point I was there when Trump got shot at, and so I'll say he got shot, he got nicked. Some guy, again, occasionally I'm abroad, I look like I do. People are, which is your absolute cookie cutter white man from America. People are always just like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm from the U.S." And like, "Oh, I'm not going to do an accent." I bailed hard on that. I did one word, and I was like, "What am I doing?" So this guy was like,
You almost got that.
I know.
Went down a slippery slope.
I know.
Our show's all about accents. Feel free.
I was driving straight over the cliff, and then I turned it, and I'm glad I did. So, anyways, this guy is asking me. He's like, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from the United States." And he goes, "Oh, I heard about the Trump and stuff like that." And he goes, "I like Trump." And like, I'm like, what am I? I'm trying to get to the breakfast at the hotel. Like, I'm tired, so I'm just like, I don't, but good for you. And I just kept walking. Being an American abroad, one of the things I like to try and acknowledge about, we talk about like people don't get to do their dream jobs. Like, I'm uniquely privileged in many ways. Just looking like I do and being in China is a privilege in unto itself, right? Where I jokingly talk about the only white privilege that I actively use, because I want to acknowledge the passive privilege that I have, is that I will use this face to get into whatever parking garage I want to see whatever cars I want to, or any hotel or whatever. When I roll into the front door, even if I'm dressed like I am in my Hawaiian shirts, they just go like, probably belongs here, Or like I use this before I did my job. When I worked in marketing, I didn't have a lot to do, to be honest, and so I would go for like 45 minute to 1 hour lunch walks, and I was in Gubei here in Shanghai, and there's a ton of really high-end apartment complexes there, and so I must have scoped out every corner of every parking garage under every apartment complex, and I found some gold in there. And if I had not looked like I do and entered, one, I wouldn't have gotten into those places. Two, if I'd been caught in there, it would have probably been a much different situation. Yeah, like, and when it comes to being able to do my dream job, one of the reasons I was able to even be in this position is because, yes, I did get lucky enough to get that fellowship, but my parents could afford to buy the plane tickets for me to get there, could afford to support me when I was there. The things that allow me to be where I am and to have my dream job. Yes, I did work really, really hard to study Chinese. And yes, I do live on the other side of the world from my entire family. Most of my family lives within an hour of each other in North Carolina. I'm the only one out of the 6 people in my close family that
The black sheep of the family.
basically.
Yellow sheep.
Yeah. And that's one I will not touch. So that's something I like to acknowledge when talking about these things, because it is a combination of, yeah, I did work hard, but yeah, it doesn't really matter if you work really hard if you just can't get the plane ticket.
Yeah. No, it's like very true that, right? And just like imagine if the color of your skin, like imagine you're in the US and you have a different skin color, and I'll leave it at that, and you're walking around in the parking garage with high-end cars with a different skin color.
It's going to be a different experience.
It's going to be a very different
It's going to
experience.
be quite a different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
let's end on that high note. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening.
well, that about
And
sums it up right
we're
there.
going to cut that together with your Middle Eastern
We're going to
accent.
splice that into
Yes,
the very
yeah.
beginning.
Put it
together.
The very beginning. You're like in a parking garage.
Yes.
But Ethan, it was wonderful getting to know you a little bit, talking to you today. I find your videos very entertaining. I know Howie's been a big fan of yours. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming here and taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging the vetting process is basically one of the three hosts goes, this guy's pretty good.
That's how we do it. That's how all our guests.
Yeah.
That's how we get all our guests.
We all do our own little.
At least one of us
vetting.
is a fan of the guest we have on. Yeah.
Well, I'll
Sure.
take this opportunity to say that I was contacted by Howie, and he's like, "Oh, we got this podcast. We got 150,000 subscribers," and I'm like, "All right." And then I checked it out. I am a fan of you guys now.
Oh, nice.
I do love this podcast. I love the perspectives that you guys bring, the guests that you have, because it's a combination of. As someone who lives in China, it's uniquely interesting to me. But even as someone, if someone didn't live in China, you guys talk about topics that are still really, really cool. And I also want to acknowledge, for those of you who don't watch the video version of this podcast, this studio is banging.
Nice.
I don't know who put this together, but this thing is very, very nice.
It's very man cave-ish.
Yes. There is
Your
a certain
shirt fits right in. It's like
Totally.
the
It
same
really does.
pattern
Like-
as like what's behind you right there.
True. I had to. The shirts. Well, we were wrapping up, so I won't get into the long thing about the shirts. But
You have this thing with Hawaiian shirts.
yes, So if you go even farther back in my videos, I used to wear a fanny pack.
Oh yeah, fanny pack. Yeah.
Right? And basically, a couple years in, my two partners, their background in car media is actually with German media. And so they have a lot of contacts in Germany, which is why our videos, at least like two a month, get put on. They're on TV in Germany and German-speaking parts of Switzerland and Austria. And so those guys liked our content because we make very high-quality content. All credit should go to, I should take the opportunity to say, my two co-founders, so to speak. The videographer is a guy named C-Man or Xiangteng, and then the other guy who helps me write my Chinese content is Justin or Chen Yusun. They are what allow me to make such high quality content. And the Germans said, "We like you guys, we like what you do. We like the the video shooting and all this stuff, but he can't wear the fanny pack." Their one thing
red
was,
line.
Yeah, the one red line
Wow.
for the Germans was that it was unbecoming of a professional car reviewer to look like a German tourist, ironically.
American tourist.
My small My small rebellion against that was the floral shirts, was the quote Hawaiian shirts. And then at some point I realized like, I'm actually really digging this. But yeah, I will continue to rock these probably way too long. Probably well into my,
There's nothing wrong with that, man. These age like fine wine.
not when I sweat into them.
Where can people find you? Like on your social media, like besides your YouTube channel?
So yeah, YouTube is Wheelsboy. And then on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook. If for any reason you want to tell your grandmother about it.
What about Chinese media?
Chinese media. So Chinese media were Cholunge. So the name first was Cholunge in Chinese, and the translation is technically the most accurate translation will be
Wheelboy.
Yeah, it is Wheelsboy or
Brother,
Wheel
right.
Bro. Yeah. Some people still insist on telling me, your name is translated wrong, and I say, do you know how grateful I am that my partners, before I actually joined, because they're the guys that really founded the brand, and then we built the channel together. I'm so grateful it's not Wheels Bro. That's such, the vibes are bad.
So on the Western platforms, just look for Wheelsboy. On the Chinese platforms,
Yes.
Celuinge, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, man. Thanks again so much for being on the show. This was wonderful. Let's do this again sometime. There's so many more topics we can get into.
Anytime. I had a great time.
We
Thank you.
should go on one of his videos. But Howie, right?
It would
Bring
be-
Howie.
it would
Bring
be his
me
dream
on.
come true.
Celebrity
Right?
guest.
Yeah.
Howie always tries to act like the car expert here when you're not around. Okay.
Yeah.
This
And
guy.
if you're struggling to kind of, figure out which flavor of vanilla, bring Howie along.
There you go.
Happy. I've got his WeChat now, so I'm going to ask
bring
him.
sand to the beach right there. Cheers, Ethan.
Gentlemen, thank you.
All right, that was Ethan. I'm Justin.
I'm Sand.
And I'm in the market for a new EV.
All right, be good, be well.
Peace.
There is a